And yet you can draw insights from those. And the philosophers, in my experience, have been one of, and this is so difficult, this, because I got such a lot from my philosophy course. And yet they were so damaging in terms of eliminating the embodied knowledge of the practitioner from the discourse. Because they just viewed it as the first crude and superficial. Those were their words. That my knowledge, that I was, with my, and yours as well, with your students, had only this first crude and superficial justification in practice. So, what I'd like to do, Joe, and we can come back, I'd love to talk more about your questions there, because I think they are so vital here. And the eye of the I, and bringing Habermas's criteria of validity to check the validity of your accounts, where all you need to do is to submit your account to a validation group of 5 or 6 peers and ask these questions. Is it comprehensible? Have I got sufficient evidence to back up my claims that I know what I'm doing? This is one that very few researchers ask. His third criteria: have I shown an awareness of the normative background from which I'm speaking? And what he means by that is that you're all subject to cultural, political and social influences in what it is that you're doing and claiming. Have you shown your understanding of those normative influences? And his fourth one, which is exciting for me, it's about authenticity. And he says that you can only show the authenticity of what you're doing in relation to the values you hold over interaction over time. That there's no way I think you might be able to judge my authenticity just from this moment together. You'd have to see some of the years of practice that I've actually put in to see how genuinely sustain my commitment to the values I claim to hold. Now, if you'll go through those 4 criteria, and you'll see those again on my website and Jean's website, I think it will help you with validity. Now, is it okay just to move on, because I wanted to show you just this multimedia work that I think you could all bring into your practice. Now, I'm not going to show this clip of me. You can access it from the keynote directly from YouTube. It was a moment when I'd been subject to pressure not to publish, my research in the university. It's this kind of pressure I'm talking about. And somebody had discovered a letter which they claimed was prima facie evidence of a breach of my academic freedom. They put it into a University Board of Studies, they put it into Senate. Senate agreed by a 1-vote majority that there was evidence my academic freedom had been breached, and a committee was set up to look into it. The committee reported, and the conclusion, it's a big thick document, that my academic freedom had not been breached. That was the conclusion. And I agreed with it because it hadn't. Now, here I'm reenacting my meeting of the committee that invited me to look at the draft. And I felt totally defeated because, whilst my academic freedom had not been breached, it had been at a great cost in terms of years of pressure that I had been under, like, take the I out. You can't have the we. Yep. We don't want you to publish this. Now, at that, I'd gone to the door, I got up from this committee feeling totally humiliated and defeated. Something happened as I got to the door, and I just felt this surge of energy. And I turned around and I faced the committee, and this video clip I put onto YouTube is my enactment of a very brief but very powerful statement that I made to that committee. And I can even feel it now as I'm speaking to you, that I said that if they had allowed that report to go to Senate in that way, they were denying their responsibility as academics. Because I had been subjected to enormous pressures during my time at the university, and whilst I hadn't permitted them to constrain my academic freedom, the committee actually responded with this phrase, that it was because of Mr. Whitehead's persistence in the face of pressure that had actually made his lack of constraint possible. So they changed the conclusion, Mr. Whitehead's academic freedom not being breached, to the recognition that I had been subject to pressure, which they said a less determined individual would have been constrained by. Now, this video clip is me expressing that, and you'll feel, I think, the controlled anger that was there. Now, it's this kind of representation that I'm saying I think we need to learn how to bring into our accounts. Now, what I've also done in the keynote is to show you how 2 women, Nancy Brown and Jill Farrell, presenting 10 days ago, are now doing this in their own work. And what I've done in the keynote is to put the video clips of Jill and Nancy. Jill's on the left, Nancy on the right. And I've contrasted their presentation, because is Han Lee here? Han Lee? Is that right? Yeah, Han Lee. Now, I saw Han Lee present yesterday, and Han Lee, it was one of the energy, it's like with Linda, that Han Lee has a gaze very much like Jill here. Now, Jill holds you with an amazing power of her gaze. You're under no doubt that you are of value to Jill in terms of the gaze. Hanley was communicating that to a whole room through her enactment, and her bodily presence and the way that that was brought in to those relationships was amazingly powerful. Now I'm saying, and I said to Hanley, look, I think there is a way in which you could bring that into your account, because if you miss it, something vital is being omitted. And what I've done with Jill and Nancy here, this was about 10 days ago, I, with their permission, videotaped them, and I was able to show both of them that what they were expressing, do you see, that Jill here had no idea of this powerful gaze that she actually presented with her audience. Nancy, totally different to Jill, but Nancy had this wonderful presence of an embrace, like a space like this. It, as I say, I keep going back to Linda's because everybody was so entranced with what it was that was being communicated, that Nancy has this ability as well to be in a space and you can feel literally a loving warmth of humanity. Now, Nancy, as she saw what I showed her with the videos, recognized in herself that she was expressing something that she herself felt was her loving warmth of humanity. And in her next paper, I believe that you'll find that she'll be using that expression to describe these values and energy of her own. Now, I'm saying that everybody in this room can actually bring this kind of data into their account. Now, I just want to show you just something here, because this is from the session itself. 54 minutes. Now, as I do this, now that just takes about 2 or 3 seconds. 54 minutes, quick time movie. Now, just look at the non-verbal communications. Not the words. Just look at Jill. I mean, it's like a maniac. You know, I had to say to Jill, look, Jill, you know, the quality of your gaze is unbelievable. You know, and it literally is in silence. You can feel, you know, real intense engagement with you and of value. But Jill speaks like a machine gun. You know, it's amazingly fast, and I think you can sense that in terms of the body language.